essence of that is to accommodate within the environment. You must have empathy to all stakeholders. The creditor banks, which number a lot and sometimes behave in a herd fashion, and then the borrower on this side, who can be intimidated by those numbers. So you try and balance honest representation. When it comes to debt restructuring, be prepared to surrender that to the 2 or 3 individuals from the specialist or advisory firm that's going to take you through this specialist process. It is not your skill. Your skill is in running, being an entrepreneur. Recognize here you've got a steep learning curve. And those corporations that have adapted, and accepted that mentality have thrived. This is a shared problem. The banks are carrying a huge level of debt. You have an exposure, you're trying to salvage your company, yes, but this is a shared perspective. It has to be a joint consensual resolution. If you will, a lose-lose or a win-win for all. It can't be I win and you lose. So when you go to, say, the creditor banks and you've interacted with CDRC for their input, you're working off a platform that has a reasonable chance of success, and it's based on parameters and principles the banks can relate to. So the question, if you're trying to be smart and pull the wool over people's eyes, that doesn't work. So you've got to be honest in your base case evaluation and proposal. And once you've got that, the nebulous, all that uncertainty is removed. That's the base document. Hey guys, can we have your input? And then you interact, then the joint consensual conclusion. That's critical. For us, the most challenging time for Sage 3 is that analysis and evaluation in putting up the first case. Because the brainstorming sessions that we have within the Sage 3 directors, that's where Sage 3 is at its best. We allow for this banter and this interaction so that everybody is anticipating the likely difficulties. So we come to a base case, what we think is a reasonable proposition. Are you guys okay, CDRC, with this? Can we then take it to the bankers for consideration? That concept or that view about no room to maneuver, I think both Ravi and I probably never have that perspective.
Okay.
There's always room to maneuver. One of the things that we do is, let's say, let me give you an example. You have a borrower, a company which has $1 billion worth of debt, and they are generating cash, and that's our fundamental criteria measure. And they're generating cash of maybe $50 million a year, that EBITDA of 50 million. You know, that equation doesn't work. 50 million of EBITDA can't sustain $1 billion. Something has to give. Bankers are either secured or unsecured. And if we look at the secured assets, and we'll get independent professionals to give us an updated assessment. So here the banker says, I've got, in this $1 billion instance, I've got these properties. They're worth at valuation originally 500 million, 600 million. So I want a premium above that, otherwise I might as well go for liquidation. So we get a current valuation in the current environment. And then if that valuation throws out the sum of, and that's invariably a valuer that we use that's acceptable by the banks and one of their tier 1 appointees. And if they come up with a valuation of, say, 350 million, certainly the valuation numbers have dropped. So your realizability is only 350. So in a worst case scenario, if you're going for liquidation, your realization is 350. Here we're giving you 500 plus. So to start off with your 150 million ahead of your valuation, you'll find some way to repay that 500 over a period of time. All your security remains intact. Now, how do we deal with the differential 500? That's where the negotiations come in, and that's where some level of innovation is required. But The reality check is here. So when you say, what happens if you find yourself in a situation where there's no hope? Actually, your call then is to tell the bankers, look, you can realize 350, but that's the worst kind of realization in a liquidation, because chances are you'll incur a lot of costs towards liquidation, and chances are you'll never get the 350, you'll get much less. You have to pay for the costs. So in this case, right with us, your 150 million up, your upside. But if you want to choose liquidation as your option, here are the figures. These are the valuers agreed by your appointed valuer. You choose.